How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Obviously, some days are better than others. I
Yeah.
think a lot depends on the weather when you've had an injury. But today I'm looking out of the window and it's a bit of sun and it's fine.
Yeah, there's a touch of sun. There's a touch of
It's trying to get through, I
sun.
think.
But
So
yeah, of course. But actually, I'm going to say it is quite mild in London for late October at the moment.
it is. Do you know we had one really cold week at the end of September? And so I sort of tentatively put the heating on. The moment I did, it became mild. So October has been a lovely month, and I think those of us who've had injuries of any sort,
Mhm.
the weather can affect, any rheumatic
Yes.
injuries. The
Yeah.
weather can affect,
Oh yeah.
and so I do notice the weather.
Of course, because it's everyone notices it, but more so because of obviously what has happened and what
Yes,
you've been through.
yes. So I mean that's where everything took a slightly different turn
Yeah,
when I had the accident,
of course.
and that was an accident that was absolutely out of the blue. I was a director in theatre and opera, and which is a very active role. But I was coming up to 75, and I was thinking, well, maybe I should wind it down slightly, slowly. And then, out of the blue, coming back from a rehearsal in the rush hour, um, I was knocked down in Waterloo Station by a guy with a backpack. Everyone was rushing,
Hmm.
thousands of people
Hmm.
piling up the stairs onto the escalator. And I think his backpack must have swung slightly, hit me in the middle of my back, and sent me flying.
Hmm.
And I fell terribly awkwardly. And I also, without knowing it, did have osteoporosis. I mean, I had no idea of this. So, in fact, basically, my bones just crumbled.
Hmm.
And so it's been since a long haul. I had four operations, major operations on that ankle, and ankle replacement on the other to strengthen it so that whatever happened, I wouldn't be in a wheelchair, which I refused to
Hmm.
even contemplate. So there we go, and it literally 3 seconds, and it changed my life.
Yeah. And I hope you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you had your accident?
I was 74.
Yeah, and it just no, go on, you were gonna say?
Well, it was 7 years ago, and you know, I mean, the sort of accident it was meant I was bedbound, really, because non-weight bearing for months on end.
Yeah, of course.
So it demanded a rethink
Hmm.
of life in general. And luckily, I have a ground floor flat which leads out onto the garden. So I am really lucky in that respect. So that was good.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was a
yeah.
good part of it because it enabled me without stairs or anything else to get around
Hmm.
in between being
Yeah.
bedbound. But it was obvious that my previous career was no longer possible. So I decided, as I'd written for theatre, I decided to change tack on that
Mhm.
and write novels, which is a completely different process. But I started, and 7 novels later, I've
Mhm.
just completed my third novel of a trilogy.
Mhm.
And I think that for the moment, I might give myself a little bit of a break now and decide what to do next. But no, it was very odd that something so quick
Mm,
should have such a profound effect.
mm. And it literally can take 3 seconds, that's it, to change your entire life.
Yes, I often watch 24 Hours in A&E, which is an absolutely fascinating program. But you realize that the people that come into A&E,
Yeah.
a lot of them with very serious injuries, often from bikes or motorbikes, uh, car accidents. And again, in a split second,
Yeah.
their whole lives are on hold and affected, and a change of direction is necessary. And you go along in life not thinking about what might happen,
Yeah.
but when it does, you have to change your life.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's you have absolutely no idea when obviously things like this are going to happen, and you usually don't expect them at all. So you don't plan for them, you
Yes.
your whole life can just be thrown a different direction
You are
in.
so right, Talia, because this is what one doesn't expect, that so
Yeah.
many aspects of your life. I mean, my whole life have been going, to rehearsals, to
Yeah.
opera, to the theatre. Now that's all really almost impossible now, because theatres involve stairs and opera houses
Yeah.
do too. And I have to rethink every aspect
Hmm.
in a way. And going abroad, I used to go abroad a lot. Now that was all sort of, travel is a nightmare, really.
Yeah.
So, in a way, but I could use a lot of this. I mean, in this last book, this character I created for the trilogy called Rawlings,
Yeah.
EG Rawlings. Now, to me, he's absolutely fascinating, and I'm glad to say other people have found him so too. But he has in book one, he has this exact problem, change of direction forced on him, because he's a war correspondent and he gets blown up in Afghanistan.
Hmm.
So the whole of the trilogy starts with him having to return and rethink his life.
Yeah. So in a way, the book that you've written, the trilogy, is almost a similarity to a comparison to what happened to you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean a very different person,
Yeah, of course,
but,
but
but no, using the circumstances and the difficulties in adjusting. I
yeah.
mean, if you've been living a certain way
Yeah.
and a career in a certain way, and it's a change of career too, that it's not just a change in your
Yeah.
lifestyle or your. So yes, and he does. He has to go through, and we learn a lot about him all the way through. But in this last book,
Hmm.
Quo Vardis, E.G. Rawlings,
Yeah.
which means which direction now
Yeah.
are you going?
Hmm.
And I've tied up all the elements really of the two previous books. Although each book stands on its own, you
Hmm.
can read each book and not have to read the others.
Hmm. So
But
which,
this last one does
yeah. So
tie.
which is the name of the first one, and this? What are the names of all three of them?
Well, the names of all three of them. I mean, the first one was A Strange Year for
Hmm.
E.G. Rawlings. And then the second one was A Year of Trials for E.G.
Hmm.
Rawlings. And then this last one, Quo Vadis, E.G. Rawlings.
So I'm sitting here with a year of trials. I have the year of trials right here with me.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
That's the first one.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with it. So
Oh, how lovely. Well, I hope people do seem to enjoy it and they
yeah.
like his character, because it's warts and all, really, but he's very charming.
Yeah.
And I think people like that. And he's an attractive man. People like that.
So even more of a reason.
Yes, that's automatically, if somebody is wounded, I think, they have an added attraction and
Yeah,
a
quite
sense.
possibly.
Yes, people are interested and they say, "Oh, how did that happen?"
Yeah,
And,
of
so
course, of course. So
yeah.
how did you find leaving your, the theatre behind, leaving your kind of old career behind? Did you struggle with that?
Do you know what? I was in such a state of shock for the
Yeah.
first that I almost immediately thought that is over. I
Yeah.
can't go back. I do miss the theatre, because the theatre is a very outward social area to work
Yeah.
in. Writing novels is a very lonely, introspective, business. You're on your own. And it came back to me really at the end of the first book,
Hmm.
and I finished it. And there was no first night and big party celebrations, or it was just a moment.
Yeah.
That's the end of that one,
Yeah.
And it's a completely different, and apart from the writing, which is different, you know, writing for the theatre is so different.
Yeah.
And novels, you know, you have the long descriptive passages as well as the dialogue. So it was a style that I had to learn really quickly.
But I guess in a way, what you've done is you've not only learned something, you know, brand new, but you've completely changed direction in a way. And I guess what it shows as well is, you know, you can do this at any stage of your life. You know, you're never
Yes.
too, you know, you're never
Well,
too
that's what
far
I
off.
keep on seeing, that people who have these terrible accidents
Yeah.
or a sudden illness or a loss of some sort. It can happen at any age.
Yeah, of course.
And I think, you know, if I could tell anything to my grandchildren, it was be prepared,
Yeah.
because you just have to be ready to adapt to whatever life throws at you, because you just don't know.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean it's going to be disastrous or an end. It could even be a beginning. You know, it could lead on to. And I must say, I've loved the writing now. I mean, I felt quite bereft at finishing the book. So, leaving the character behind, you know, you
Yeah.
become so involved with them.
Yeah.
But no, I think it is important that people learn this lesson, because you can either sink and go into a depression and give up, really. And in many ways, I sympathize. It would have been quite easy to do. You suddenly have a whole way of life taken from you.
Yeah.
And that can happen in so many different instances, you know.
Yeah.
People going through a divorce or going through a loss of somebody, or, you know, it can happen when you just think, how do I go on from here?
Yeah.
But there is always a way through, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. It can be any event, any traumatic event for somebody. Like you said, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't even have to be something physical.
No.
It can be a divorce, it can be heartbreak, it can be any kind of thing where your whole entire life just takes a U-turn.
Yes.
And when was the moment for you when you kind of maybe saw that little bit of light that you thought, right, I'm not gonna sit here and fall into this kind of, you know, depression. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to start writing, and I'm going to follow that dream.
I think with me it kicked in fairly quickly,
Yeah.
because I was in quite a deal of pain at the
Yeah.
beginning. And I thought, I have got to have something which takes this pain away and leaves me concentrated.
Mm.
And then the moment I sort of started pen to paper or tapping on the laptop, um, it did change, and I began to feel I could be very happy doing this.
Mm.
And I think in that way I'm lucky,
Yeah.
because I had been writing before, although differently.
Hmm.
I think what I missed was the companionship of you know, of working in a group and but you know, you're alone with your characters that you've created.
Yeah.
So that was quite difficult. And then, of course, we had COVID, which this book, Quo Vardis, EG Rawlings, deals with COVID,
Okay.
and so it's right. It brings right up to date.
Hmm.
And I had to go back and research, because although you lived through COVID, you couldn't remember. I couldn't remember what happened. You know, it's the order of the lockdowns, and you know, who
Yeah.
who who stopped you from doing something when. What happened? I didn't have a clue about the schools, of course.
Yeah.
I no longer have children or grandchildren of school age, so I didn't. Well, I had one who was
Yeah.
just finishing at school, but I had no idea about all this home tuition and,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh dear goodness. I mean, I think I was lucky to escape that.
Yeah, it's definitely throughout that situation. It was if you had a friend or a relative or somebody that you knew that was directly affected. So like I have friends that are teachers, and so that's how, you know, I kind of could see what was
You
going on
learn.
with regards to the schooling side of things. So I would hear them say when they weren't allowed in, or when they were allowed in, or when they
I
walked
know,
home. Yeah.
because it was quite a complicated timeline. I mean, over
Yeah.
the 2 years, we were in, we were out, people were meeting. Of course, it didn't affect me because I was isolated anyway.
Yeah.
And because I'd had so many operations, they didn't want me seeing anyone.
Yeah, of course.
So apart from the lovely nurses who came in to change my trips or whatever, I didn't see anyone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the children were very good and grandchildren, they kept me, and I think, although I hate Zoom, because when you're in your 80s, you don't really like seeing yourself on the in film or anything. But I think it was a good way. I had my 80th birthday during the beginning of lockdown,
Okay.
so I couldn't have a party or anything.
Yeah.
And one of my daughters organized so that I had. I think there must have been 80 people on the screen. It was
Nice.
everyone, friends and relations. It was very funny.
Yeah.
But I didn't Zoom that much, but I did a bit
Yeah.
and kept in touch by phone.
Yes. So you were not only were you adjusting with regards to, the pandemic, but you were also still adjusting to having the operations. So
Yeah.
it was a lot for you.
Yes, I had my the last major operation during COVID.
Yeah.
So yes, I was,
Yeah.
and that was all a bit of a nightmare because the poor hospitals and I was in isolation, and it was difficult. It was difficult.
Of course, of course. But it's one thing that I think everybody learn is to slow down a little bit. And in life in general, and it's kind of with regards to your accident, you said a man who was in a rush and he knocked you over. And it's like when I see, and obviously from what I've been through, and when
Mm.
when I wasn't walking, or when I was, but I was walking very slowly and, hobbling on crutches. And
Yeah.
I remember when my surgeon and probably my physio as well said to me, if you want to catch a train and you see it on the platform, they said, do not run for it. They said, do not run for that train because there's another one a few minutes behind.
Yes.
And I still have that. I mean, I'm walking fine again, but I still have that. Actually happened last night in
Really.
London. I saw a
Yeah.
train and I thought, there's another one behind it.
There's another one.
There's another one behind it. And I think that's one thing that maybe in London a lot of people don't do, but I think in a lot of the world is people need to slow down a little bit.
We do, because the stress build up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people need to slow down. You're absolutely right. And yes, another train will come along, another bus will come
Yeah.
along. We don't need that thing immediately. We can wait a day or two. We've all become so much an immediate response to things. And it's the same with technical problems. I had terrible technical problems over the weekend. Well, I just hit a button on my laptop, and the cursor, so it just disappeared, and I was completely helpless,
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, I'll leave it till Monday, and then I thought, no, I can't because I'm doing a Zoom on, So that was the case when I had to go and get it, and it was literally one. I must have knocked it or something.
Yeah.
It was one button, which
Yeah.
I didn't know about. Now I do, but
Yeah.
that will probably never happen again now. But
Yeah.
technical challenges are something that I do find difficult.
Don't worry, so do I. So do
Uh,
I.
well, I'm so relieved when other people say that because, grandchildren come in and go bing, 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 and everything's sort of sorted. But I came to it all late, so I'm rather slow.
No, don't worry. I have technical
Oh,
challenges
well,
as
I
well. Don't
oh, I
worry.
absolutely hear
I
it.
have them all as well.
Yeah, but you found the same struggle of walking again, and
Yeah. Yeah, it was yeah, definitely. Walking again was one of the strangest things to have to do, to
yeah,
relearn how to walk, something that I've been doing for, my whole life, and then relearning how to do it again. And also with the fear that my knee's not going to buckle, or I'm not going to fall over.
That's another thing, that one has to go more slowly because of balance problems.
Yeah.
And, there was an extraordinary man that I saw on one of these A&E things, but he had a head injury.
Yeah.
Into a coma.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came out of the coma, he literally had to learn how to talk again, and then start to learn to read again. And that seems to me an even bigger jolt, really. But people can do it, and he was amazing. And he was very fluent and talking about it. And, so you can pick yourself up and start all over again.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things as well where, I don't know if people said this to you, but I had quite a few people say to me, I don't know how you got through what you got through. I could never get through what you got through. But it's one of those things which I learned recently as well, was, you can get through these things. And, if unfortunately the worst case scenario happens and you have to relearn how to talk again, if you want it, you will do it.
Do it. Yes, I'm asked it all the time. How on earth did you get through? At the time, you didn't have any alternative, really. And I think when it's happening to you, you don't think, how am I going to get through this? You just do what you're told and get on with it.
Yeah.
And looking back in retrospect, well, yes, it was a bit of an ordeal, but at the time you were concentrated on getting on with it, and doing it.
Yeah.
So, and people who say, oh, I could never have that, they could. Everyone meets challenges. I think it's a very good lesson to learn, that you can do it. If you really want to, you can.
Yeah. It's one of those challenges. It's when you hit a brick wall in life, and we all hit brick walls in any kind of way. And that is, once you hit the brick wall, what are you going to do? Are you going to just give up and kind of, suffice and succumb to the brick wall? Or are you going to find a way to get over the brick wall? And it's like one door closes, another one opens.
I do so agree. I tried to do that with his character Rawlings.
Yeah.
Very much. He's been blown up really badly. His girlfriend has been killed.
Mm-hmm.
And he is really a bit of a wreck, but he puts himself back together again.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that change his life. He suddenly finds he has to be the guardian to his 10-year-old grandson.
Yeah.
And there are major things that can make you concentrate on other people rather than yourself, and that helps.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's it, even though you said that when, writing the book, it was rather than in theatre when you were with everybody, obviously writing the book was, yourself with the characters, but you've written characters now that, I've got it in front of me. That's why I keep pointing down, you've written characters that now people, all over the world, hopefully, will also cherish it. Yeah, exactly.
Relate to. I think so. And you know what? We need books at the moment, because life is not easy for anyone at the moment. And there are terrible things going on. And when you think a paperback costs the equivalent of, 2 cups of coffee in the high street, and the pleasure will last for so much longer. And I think you can lose yourself in somebody else's world.
Yeah.
And it really is a good thing to be doing. I think everyone should be reading more. And if you find books you like, you should read them.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of the things that have changed my life the most are books. Some of the books I've read have just changed my thought patterns or the way I, live life in certain aspects. And that's all from, a couple of pages.
Doing these interviews that I've been doing since the book was published, it's amazing how many people have said that.
Really?
That certain books have really made them change their way of thinking, or and that's marvelous to hear, really.
Yeah.
And I think your books at the moment can give encouragement and maybe a bit of joy and a bit of, make you think, and it's good.
But it is getting lost in a story as well. It's a form of escapism, but it's a very, it's a very wholesome form of escapism.
Yes, it is, and it's lovely when you can't put the book down, which as a
Yeah.
writer, you always aim to write something where people say, "Oh, it's a page turner,"
Yeah. Or you get to the end of the book and you're like, I have to wait for the next one?
I
No.
know. Well, that's why although I've written this trilogy and
Yeah.
followed Rawlings through, it was a late decision when I was three-quarters way around the book you're reading now.
Hmm.
Um, and my publisher just said, these characters are so marvelous. Why don't you go on with another one? And then
Yeah.
when I got to the end of the second one, I said, well, I will do the third, but that will be it. Because I thought, that brought it all to a
Yeah.
nice conclusion. But you can read each one, and that's
Yeah.
not necessary. But
Yeah.
hopefully, people will want to read,
Yeah. Yeah.
2 and 3. Or even if they read 3, they might want to go back to 1 and 2.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
a nice way of thinking of people doing it.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask as well, do you believe that in life everything happens for a reason?
Do that's a question I ask myself a lot.
Yeah.
It's a very good question because I think it's something you have to think about when you have a happening.
Yeah.
Yes, looking back, I think I might have been getting tired.
Hmm.
Not just physically, but mentally.
Yeah.
I might have been, in your mid-70s, you start to slow down, I think.
Hmm.
And although I couldn't believe I was going to slow down, I was brought up short, and then it happened.
Yeah.
And I think it has made my life much easier and gentler and, with slightly less stress
Yeah.
than I had before. So it was probably something, saying to me, you've got to stop. You
Yeah.
really got to slow down and stop this ridiculous hurling around the countryside and doing tours and all the rest of it. So maybe it did happen for a reason. But then looking back to other people I know who have, my son had a really bad
Mhm.
accident. Maybe it was just telling him to slow down too. I think maybe, I don't know what you felt about yours, but
Exactly those words that I was meant to slow down. Like
yeah,
literally slow down, as in couldn't walk, slow down. So
yeah,
that's exactly, I feel like I was meant to stop and reevaluate quite a lot
that
of
is
things.
interesting, you see. I think some of us charge on, and I do look at people, and you can see them getting more and more stressed, and particularly with the way life goes at the moment, and with work and the pressures, and you think something's got to give.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, not necessarily quite such a violent way, but
Yeah.
I mean, if we were sensible, we would rethink our lives without having to
Yeah.
be brought up short. But
But unfortunately, I think a lot of us, that's when it happens because we are brought up short, and that is when we unfortunately do reevaluate because we don't think to do it until something hits
yeah,
us.
no, I think that's absolutely true.
Um,
And in a way, we can't bear to say, I'm slowing down, I've got to
yeah,
stop. You feel life must carry on. I've been doing this all my life. Why shouldn't I go on doing it? And then
exactly.
you you know, it's not really
Yeah.
very sensible of us, but we're not very sensible as a race, are we?
Not all the time, no.
No,
No.
no,
But I did
no.
want to ask then if you had any advice that to give somebody that was going through kind of any situation, maybe similar to yours, or in a maybe they needed to reevaluate and they have been forced to suddenly stop. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that if the fates have forced you to stop,
Yeah.
you really have to go through quite gently with yourself and find out what are the possibilities, because not everyone can turn writer. I mean, there aren't that many things you can do in a being static.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't have turned out to be a businesswoman in any way.
Yeah.
I'd have been useless at it. So you have to try and think of what your assets are and match them to what you can do, because physically and mentally. And I think not to despair, but to take it slowly. I know with a lot of people, probably it's financial, and I wouldn't say writing novels is a way out financially, but because it's a difficult way through. But to find out within your means and within your capabilities what you can do, there's always something. Take up photography, or take up doing needlepoint, or doing, there's always a way through, I think. And a lot of people, I think, have turned to counseling when they have about giving experience through and passing on their advice, counsel.
And I guess what it is, and everything that you've been through and where you've got with your books, it just shows that in life it is never too late to start something new.
No, well, it the family all thought it was quite funny that I was starting to be a novelist at the age of 74, but 7 books later, they can't really be surprised anymore. And there are some writers who took it up quite late in life. I don't think anyone quite as extreme as me, but but you can write at any time in your life. Really, that's the great thing about it.
Exactly. Well, this was absolutely perfect. Is there anything else you want to share briefly?
No, I don't think so. You've been absolutely lovely, and I feel we have shared a sort of experience, and we've both come through it.
Yeah, we have. And I guess that's the thing, like you started with at the beginning when I asked you how you are. It is up and down, and you have good days.
It is up and down, but I think everybody, it was up and down when I was having stress levels in rehearsal. Life's always up and down. So,
it is.
But pain levels, I think people just have to learn to manage them.
Yeah, of course.
And they're manageable as well. I mean, you can get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to
Talia, talk. It's been so lovely. I feel I've met a friend. So.
I feel like I've met a friend as well, see? And that's what I love about a community like this, is you can meet people that you would probably never think you would, and then you end up on Zoom with them.
That is one of the great benefits of technology, I have to say.
Exactly. Well, thank you.